this is actually the best example I have to illustrate deliberate practice. And it's the one that sticks in my head the most because it was probably the most exciting transformation from I don't know what this is to I'm actually really good at this.
What's up, gamers? I recorded this conversation with Root actually last September, so it's been a while. I apologize for not getting it out sooner. Some of the stuff is out of date. Some of it's still really, really, really great. That rhymed. Bars. Thank you to Root for having this convo with me. Let me know in the comments what was some of the best advice he gave you.
I'm Root Reducer. I used to be DTM a long, long time ago, and probably a lot of you know me from that. I changed my name because DTM stands for Dan the Man, and eventually I was like, that's kind of dorky. And I don't know. Also,
I didn't actually know that. I just learned that. That.
Also, it was like taken on Twitch and everywhere else because it's 3 letters and you can't get a 3-letter handle. So I had my code open one day and I saw the word Root Reducer and some code I was working on. I was like, I don't know, that sounds kind of cool. And nobody had taken it. So now I'm Root Reducer. Yeah, I started playing DDR when I was a teenager, probably like many people watching this and in the community. I stepped on a pad one time at my grandma's birthday at this casino. My mom gave me a roll of quarters and $20. I was like, go have fun for a couple hours. And it was the first time I had seen a DDR machine and there weren't people around. And I was like, if there's any time to do it, it's now. Like, look around, like, okay, I'm not going to embarrass myself, right? That roll of $20 quarters was gone like that. And I was back like, more.
Do you remember how much it cost then? Was it $1?
It was probably $1. Yeah,
$1,
I don't remember though. Yeah, so this is like back in 2002. Geez, 20 years ago, man.
Yeah, we're old.
Yeah. I don't remember what mix it was, weirdly. It was probably Max, but who knows? Maybe it was something older. I wish I remembered. Yeah, so instantly, right, I started making the Christmas wish list. Like, I want a PS2 because I was a Nintendo kid. I want DDR Max, DDR Max 2. I got some Red Octane soft pads and started playing. And I don't know how I discovered Stepmania back in the early days of the internet. Somehow, I don't know. We all found it. I don't know how.
But... Yeah, I mean, probably just browsing online forums, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
probably Flash Revolution.
Yeah, exactly. You were probably a part of like multiple, like I was, and then you basically were just like, oh, I want to, at that time it's like 3D apps on the computer were becoming a thing. And like, oh, you could just download this, there was like Delight Reduplication.
Sure.
There's Dance with Intensity.
Sure.
There's BMS, what was it, B Music Source or something? Or I don't know.
All kinds of nonsense.
Yeah. So like, yeah, take your pick. Everyone's just making all these programs that can play, what effectively is DDR on your keyboard.
Yep.
Crazy.
So yeah, got Stepmania 3.9.
Nice.
And of course started discovering custom content and then started realizing like, oh, I can make it too. That's kind of when this is going to tie into deliberate practice really, really nicely. I kind of stopped playing on pad. When I was a teenager, I was really out of shape and I hated physical activity. Like I loathed it. I detested it. Like I was the kid when we were running the mile, I was walking in the back. I was the kid when we were doing the presidential fitness challenge and you're doing pull-ups. Like I was struggling just to hang on to the bar. Like I always just thought it wasn't for me. Played a lot of video games. I was very sedentary. And DDR was like my only form of physical exercise ever that I liked. But it was also really hard because of that, right? Like I hit this hard limit kind of around DDR old school 9s, playing things like Cartoon Heroes. I just couldn't get through it. Like I could read the steps and I could do it and just like, or Max 300 was my nemesis. Like I could get to the stop. And then afterward, it's just like, I'm done. So I did not have any stamina. My cardio was trash, but I didn't want to admit that that was the problem or that was the thing like holding me back from being good. So I started playing Index Stepmania. Because, hey, guess what? You don't need to be physically fit to do that at all. And really, over the next couple of years, I kind of stopped playing, dance games on feet, and I played solely on keyboard. I got really good at it. But I think it was never quite as fun. And it was a substitute for what I really wanted to do. So yeah, that's kind of how it all started. And then once I graduated college and moved out, I was just in apartments. I spent most of my 20s living in different countries. I was teaching English in Taiwan and Korea, um, living in little places, really nomadic lifestyle. And I just never had space or money or time for dance games. And I kind of forgot about them almost. It was always in the back of my head, like, man, I miss DDR. I miss playing dance games, but oh well, I can't. Like Cobalt Flux doesn't make pads anymore. There's no arcades anywhere anymore. I don't even know if anyone still plays. And then the pandemic happened,
Oh,
and
geez. Yeah.
I imagine a lot of people during the infinite boredom and insanity of the pandemic were doing all kinds of Google searches for things, feeling nostalgic about things. So I
Yep.
started looking up DDR, and wouldn't you know, there's this company in Poland that makes this pad called an L-Tech. They're like $300. I was like, what the hell? I should start playing DDR again. I have a place to put a pad. I'm going to try it. So this was like 2022, early 2022, I guess. I got my L-Tech. I set up not Stepmania, but Outfox this time. So
Mm-hmm.
Stepmania, I had to catch up on the whole history of like what the hell happened to Stepmania and all the forks, and that was a whole thing. But I started playing again, and the big difference this time from when I was a teenager was I had spent the last 10 years getting into shape and discovering the joy of physical activity. Like when I was in my early 20s, I started running, I started lifting weights, and I started discovering like these things can feel good and make you feel good and help you feel more confident and healthy. And this time when I played DDR, it was a whole different world. It's like, oh my God, I can play these songs that used to just destroy me and I can get through them. And it was like this this burst of energy shot to me. It's like, oh my God, it's time. I'm in my 30s now, but I'm gonna get good at this game. And I passed max 300 for the first time. Like I finally that teenage demon that was just in the back of my head, like you never passed max 300. I finally got it. That was February of 2022. I just looked up the screenshot today before this conversation. I got
That's so sick.
let me send you the screenshot because I have it open right here. A year and a half ago that I got this score. So I'm dropping that in the chat. So that was a year and a half ago now. Got a B minus on max 300 with 17 misses. But you know what? I was really proud. I was really proud.
Like every
Absolutely not.
session, I'm like always thinking about like, man, I was not doing that 6 months ago or a year ago or whatever, like whatever it
100%.
is. I'm just like, what the hell just happened? Like I'm not. So even if it's a year ago or 20 years ago, I feel like you. I think that's one of the. I do, even though I'm an asshole in a funny way sometimes mostly just obnoxious, but sometimes funny. I feel like, being nice to yourself, I think is a really important part of the game. So I love that you do this. I love that you're like,
Yes.
max 300, fuck you. I'm gonna dominate you now
Yep.
that I'm like
Yep.
healthy and fit, and boom, see ya.
Yep.
And it's just
Yep.
like, it feels so good. It's like
It felt
I
so
think
good.
that's what living is all about, honestly.
You should remember that not so long ago, I thought that this score was fantastic and worth sharing on Discord, worth remembering in a screenshot. And it's still okay to be proud of those scores, I think, even when you're better, because they're relative to your skill level when you got them. And that's the important part.
Being nice to I think people confuse being nice to themselves with like telling themselves like false platitudes or something, but it's just like it is
Mm-hmm.
just really being honest with yourself. Like
Oh, yeah.
it is an honest exercise to look at something you did and time ago and say, I just did this though,
Yep.
and compare those. And it's like that is like when you practice something and you get good at something, that's kind of like what you should do to see if it worked, right?
Yep. Yep.
Like if you're like, I know
100%.
you right now are practicing crossovers.
Yeah.
There's going to
We'll
be a
talk about
time
that,
when
I'm
you
sure.
play something like Horizon or First Remote and you don't
Oof.
strain yourself besides like
Yeah.
lungs. Maybe you
Sure.
get winded because you're human. Um, but like, yeah, it's like you're gonna be like, oh, I didn't even think about the crossovers. I remember
Yep.
when
Yep. Yep. 100%.
all I could do is think about crossovers. I could
Yep.
only think about crossovers.
Yep.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah.
So like, I
Um,
don't. Would you say that's being nice to yourself or honest with yourself, or is that like critical? I mean, like people's brains are so different. Like I have
sure.
friends that like spiral into anxiety, and it's like you got to like dig them out, and it's like I love you and you're great, and it's like you can do this. It's just a game or whatever. Whatever you need to like give the positive message to like reinforce that they're fine, basically.
Yeah.
That it's like a mental kind of thing they're going through. Yeah, it's
I,
just like where what do you think? Like it's just like it's
I
kind
think
of
the key is healthy introspection. If I
yeah.
had to put it in a package, right? It's like introspection is necessary and very important. It's also possible to do it way too much, like you were just talking about, and like spiral into that anxiety. But without introspection, it's very hard to improve at just about anything. So yeah, it's not necessarily. I kind of do agree with you. It is about being nice to yourself. Like you shouldn't look back at your old school and be like, "Dang, I sucked back then." It's about looking at your journey and seeing like, "Oh wow, it's so cool that back then I could do that, and now I can do this even better." And like that was really good for the me back then, and this is really good for the me now. And like tomorrow, I'm gonna do even better based on this trajectory. So you don't have to look back at yourself and be like, yeah, those false platitudes. You don't need to be like, oh no, you really were good back then. It's like, no, it's okay. I sucked at foot switches back then. That's okay. I'm good at them now. I suck at crossovers today. I'm gonna be good at them in 2 months, whatever. I'm not gonna put a deadline on it, but
When you ask someone for advice and that person says be nicer to yourself, like
mm,
practically speaking that could mean
yeah,
some different stuff to people. So yeah, I
sure,
think honesty is correct. Like the title of this video will be something like, using deliberate practice something. So I'm curious, like I'm a psychologist. Like I studied like cog sci
yeah,
and
hmm,
HCI and all this stuff. So I like learn about like various psychological things just by reading about them. I'm curious how you came across this. Is this something you employ out of Stepmania? Do you like, I know you're into like doing yoga and like other kinds of physical activity. You're very fit. So yeah, just
sure,
curious like where you stand in general on this whole like methodology, I guess,
sure,
of training oneself.
yeah, absolutely. I think for me, it really came into focus when I got the internet and realized that anything that you could possibly want to know about, there is someone who's way smarter than you, who knows way more about it, that is right there. And they're either already offering advice or they're open for questions, or, the resources are there and all you have to do is look for them. And that kind of opened up it unlocked everything for me, right? It's like, okay, I want to get good at X. Like you mentioned, like weightlifting. When I first started, when I was 20, it was like 22, I stepped into a gym for the very first time in my life. And I literally, this is not a joke or an exaggeration in any way, this is exactly what happened. I tried to do a bench press with the empty barbell, which weighs 45 pounds, and I got stuck under it. I could not lift it up, and a guy had to come over and help me. And after that, I went home and I started looking up online, like, okay, uh, what should you do if you're a beginner at weightlifting? And I started just digesting every possible source of information that was out there. I read it all. I read all kinds of professional stuff. I read amateur stuff. I read weird topics on like Reddit and bodybuilding.com. And I think the trick is with this kind of thing, with this, if you're trying to learn something and deliberately practice it, you also have to be good at synthesizing information, which is another skill all by itself because there's lots of bad advice out there too. And so the trick for me is just like absorb as much as possible and then synthesize and put together the best bits. Find to like relate it back to dance games. find the people who you want to emulate, who are the best. Find the demos of the world and see what they're doing. Learn from them. Ask them questions. Watch their streams. Watch their VODs. Get in their discords. If there's something you don't know, ask, because usually people who are really good at something want to also share that knowledge and help other people be good. Not in every field, but usually for games at least. So yeah, absolutely. Like, this is something that I've applied to most things that I become passionate about and want to get good at.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate the compliment. I do this too, right? Like, when I when I pop into Max Storm's stream, Rob Oaken from the UK. I mean, I learn so much because he like teaches me new ways to carry baby powder in my pants, and like, other very interesting methods of playing the game that I would never
Sure.
think about. No, but no. On a serious note, I think like, in my opinion, like Stepmania, like the tech scene is so small that I think all the top players have like um, a branch of the tech tree, pun intended, that they've like really specced into.
Sure.
So it's really
I love
interesting,
it.
like watching all the kind of rainbow of top players, and like from rank 1 to like 20, and everybody kind of does something a little differently for
Sure.
each of the ways, or each of the kind of like techniques, I guess. So really,
What's your
really
branch?
interesting. Yeah.
What would you say your spec is if you had to put a title on it?
I think like dense movement tech at 11, 12, 13 range. I think I'm like pretty unbeatable. But like when you get to tens and nines or 14s, it's like a lot more of a toss up.
Sure.
So yeah. But I think,
Yeah.
yeah, if it's like, if there like if there's a lot going on, and the lung capacity is not a lot, but it's more than a 10, I feel
Got
really
it. Got it.
confident.
Yep. Yeah, it is cool to see what different people specialize in, and that's the other cool thing, is just how much content there is out there. Um, it's something else that I was thinking about with deliberate practice, and I got this advice when I started playing. I probably would have come to the conclusion by myself, I would hope, but like, play everything, play it all. Don't say no
Oh yeah.
to any charts. Play bad charts, play good charts, play fast stuff, slow stuff, play easy stuff, hard stuff. Like, just expose yourself to as much as possible. I think that's what I've been trying to do, especially because there's 15 years of content that I'm trying to catch up on. But it is cool how you see some
Definitely.
players like Simo. Well, he's good at everything too, but like, it's like Simo's rhythms capabilities, just like out of this world. And you're like, how do you get good at that? And it's probably because he practiced a lot of chart with really hard rhythms.
Simo is a perfect example of like, maybe I should ask him. I'm friends with him. We're both friends with him. Maybe we should just be like, why did you decide to be the rhythms guy, right?
Sure.
Because I think like chances are he probably was like not good one day and was like, this song or these set of songs or this event or whatever, fuck this, I'm done with this, and now I'm gonna be amazing. And what do you do to be amazing at rhythms? You inundate yourself with songs that have
Yep.
rhythms, right? So
Yep.
that is like deliberately, going back to your comment earlier where it's like, I think a lot of people, the norm maybe even is like you enjoy the game a lot. Maybe you desire to be competitive or desire to get like high, more perfect scores, but you're not seeing an improvement. And you're like, oh, I've been playing 8 years, 10 years, 20 years, and I'm like the same or worse. And so chances are you don't have that same like, kind of scalpel oriented attack.
Yep.
What steps did you take to go from like foot switch beginner
Sure.
to like, again, now it's like automatic processing, right?
Sure. Yeah. Great question. And I think this is actually the best example I have to illustrate deliberate practice, and it's the one that sticks in my head the most because it was probably the most exciting transformation from I don't know what this is to I'm actually really good at this. So when ITL 2023 started, I didn't know what tech was. Like I mentioned earlier, I was playing DDR. So at that point, I was already streaming. I was streaming in the DDR category because I didn't know there was a Stepmania category. And like nobody was watching because nobody watches in the DDR category. So I was just doing my morning stream. My goal was to get 500 perfect full combos on DDR in Stepmania timing. So like whatever, it was just kind of this arbitrary goal. It was fun enough, but I don't even know how I found out about it. I must have jumped into somebody's stream who was talking about it. Like, hey, there's this thing that's starting, this ITL thing, and there's an announcement stream this Saturday. And I was like, okay, I'll watch it. I'm bored. I don't know. And I remember, Vincent comes on stream and everybody in the chat just starts going absolutely bananas. Like this, it's so funny. Like, so I work at Amazon. I'm a slight tangent here, but we all had to return to office recently, even though I haven't been going. Haha, that's another story. But in one of the press releases for like,
Swag.
how's it going? Yeah. Well, maybe not for long if I become unemployed, but they said one of the reasons we want you all to return into office is because we know you'll feel the surge in energy. And now this has become like a meme among all the Amazon players. Like, hey, are you feeling the surge today?
Oh
Um,
my God.
but in that chat, I felt the surge of energy. Saw all these people that I didn't know, and everyone was like beyond hyped. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna check this out. I'm gonna see what this is. So the thing starts. I download the pack. I jump into the sevens, and I'm like, okay, this is like I'm pretty good at this. These are like DDR charts that feel like I don't know, maybe eights or nines. They're kind of hard, but So I played 1999, which is the very first chart in the pack, and then I played 9 millimeter, and it's like, okay, this has hands in it, right? I played ITG on PlayStation 2 back in the day. I know hands. Okay, this chart's got hands, but then like it's also got these mines in it, but they're not mines that you're not supposed to hit, or
They're
like
not
they
dodge
feel
mines.
weird. They're not dodge mines. I could tell that. It's like I remember Charlene. I could never pass it back in the day, but like I remember that style of charting. I'm like, this is different. And so I'm playing through more of the sevens. It mostly goes well. And then I jump into the eights. And suddenly, like, half or more of the charts just have these mines everywhere. And God, I wish I had the VOD. I didn't know Twitch deleted VODs after 60 days back then. So I wasn't
Ah,
saving
yeah.
them. Just
That
such a bummer.
sucks.
But I remember complaining to the few people who were watching, like, I don't understand these charts. There are so many mines in them, and I'm hitting all of them, and I don't get what you're supposed to do other than like jumping around like a lunatic, right? Like you can't dodge all these mines. It's not even possible, and it's not fun. And people in the chat, somebody, it's like, oh, those are foot switches. Like, well, what the hell's that, right? I've never even heard of a foot switch. I don't know what that is. So I asked them, like, okay, you're supposed to hit the panel with alternating feet, picking up the first one, then putting down the second one. I'm like, that seems really difficult and weird. I'm just not going to do it. But as I'm playing through more of the eights and getting okay scores, then I get into the nines, and it's like, okay, I see. I'm not going to get anywhere if I don't learn how to do this. So I started watching other streamers because everybody was playing and everybody was streaming ITL then. And I started asking. I just went into the stream and I'd watch and wait until there was a foot switch, and I'd ask like, "Hey, can you show me again how you did that?" I remember really specifically Zankara. Uh, he took the time to like stop his stream. He pointed the camera at the pad for me, and he's like, I'm going to show you how to do a foot switch. I'm going to show you what happens on the down. I'm going to show you what happens on the up. I'll show you like where my heel is lifting, where my other foot is putting down. And he has, of course, a real arcade cab, so it lights up, so I could see the timing of when the
Nice,
pad
yeah.
was being triggered. And I was like, okay, this is great. I have just been taught by someone who knows way more than me. So now at least I understand the concept, and I just started practicing it. I went back to the sevens and the eights. I found charts like I never remember chart names. There's some eight by Good Cool. The artist is Good Cool. This is Cave something, doesn't matter. Who cares? It's just some random eight. It has foot switches in it. And I started trying to do them, and like just really specifically going, okay, next up, I'm going to play a song that I know has foot switches in it. I'm 100% sure because I've played it before. I've watched it. I'm going to not even worry about the rest of the chart. I'm not going to worry about my score. My only goal for playing this next chart is like, there's 6 times foot switches happen. I want to try to hit 3 or more of them, or all of them, ideally, right?
Yep.
It's
Yep.
like, okay, you've watched my streams, you know, I get really excited when I hit a new tech. Like, I yell it out. Like, okay, foot
You should
switch.
be.
And I'm
It's
like, okay,
hard.
got
It's
it. It
super
is
hard.
hard. It is hard. I'm
The
like,
game's
okay, foot switch.
impossible.
So I'm like calling it out, like football audibles. Every time I hit it, I make sure to like give myself a little virtual pat on the back and get that positive feedback loop going. Like, okay, get happy when I hit it. When I don't hit it, don't get too bummed, but make sure that I know, like, okay, that was a foot switch and I didn't hit it. And yeah, I spent a couple weeks just like really playing a lot of charts with a lot of foot switches and not worrying about anything else. And then I remember Bad Boy Birdwatch 9. I played kind of over and over again, and I was getting really, really close to getting an FEC on it. And I remember thinking, like, and even saying, you know, if I can FEC this chart, I can FEC any chart with foot switches because it's all the same. It's the exact same thing. Different speeds, different patterns, whatever. It's all just foot switches. And I actually got the FEC that time, which was like one of my favorite ITL moments. And then I knew, like, okay, I've got it. Like, I can do foot switches. And yeah, I still miss them sometimes, lots of times. But I know now that the tech is totally internalized because I made that effort to like make sure that I knew it.
Yep.
That's a
Yep.
long answer.
No. Perfect answer. Honestly, like I think the thing that I want to stress from your answer is that like, and one going back to my little diatribe of like, people complain they play the game 20 years, they want to get good, they don't get good. Why? Right? Like, you just described like basically building blocks,
Yep.
and unfortunately, I think a lot of people just lack the critical thinking and like thread weaving like ability, like the neuronal kind of, their brain makes new neurons and they like use those neurons. Like, I think it's a deliberate, like, no pun intended with like the name of the video and concept, but that's the crux. I think it's just like, you start by asking nice people in our community. Our community's tiny, so it's like, yeah, you literally know everyone. Like,
yep.
you should know everyone who's like remotely online and active. And then if you yourself are remotely online and active, and then you can ask them, yeah, like, hey, this chart has foot switches, you're playing it, do you mind like going slow? Or just like, can you just talk about what you're doing? That's like block number 1, block number 2, right? And then you just keep like, then you practice it, then you find songs that specialize in it. Each of these things is adding another layer of like learning, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that the like, where are you now? Like, what do you do? What is like what's your foot switch goal now?
Yeah.
Do you have
one?
My
favorite, I have a favorite foot switch accomplishment, which was FECing Max's Protect Me 12, which I'm going to nominate for ITL foot switch chain next year because I think it's like just a kick-ass foot switch chart. My goal now, oh boy. Yeah, my goal now is to get better at foot switch chains with brackets. Like, I think my main goal that I want to do right now is pass waterfall. And of course, like, now we're talking about like blended tech and all these other things, but it's still, at the end of the day,
hard 13 though. Like, that's very, very hard.
No kidding. But it comes down to being really, really solid in your foot switches. So still a lot of work to do.
Yeah, I mean, but like, think about you went from Bad Boy Birdwatch to Waterfall, and I'll have these charts on the screen. I think it'd be cool for, people need the context of like how the level of difficulty going from one to the other is absurd. So yeah, I think that like, to get from one to the other requires like this. We've said the word deliberate so many times. I hate it.
It's like
this deliberate thought, right? It's like, I
That's
am
the key.
going from A to B, B to C, C to D, D to E. I'm not trying to go from A to Z. That's not
Sure,
how this works. And I
sure.
think that people just kind of cruise, like I'm generalizing, but like the person who's been playing forever and wants to get good scores, but kind of is like a casual, and like but like wants to get good scores is kind of just like cruising in like in D or E.
Yeah, yeah.
So just take it's like it's cool. It's possible.
Yes,
I
100%.
was terrible at one point. It turns out if you picked a 12 or higher on me, I would auto fail because I too was out of shape. I was like, I just like couldn't move fast. Like I don't know, I'm just not coordinated enough, right?
Sure.
Um but like you can beat that. Like I think that like where I'm at in my journey is like when I see a non-blue judgment, I'm asking questions.
When we're talking about deliberate practice, I remember I was learning piano for a while. I don't play anymore because I didn't like it. But I remember when I was first reading about it and learning how to learn piano, a lot of people were recommending do not teach yourself. Now, I think you can. I think there are probably plenty of great piano players who are self taught. But the reason why, when I read that, is because it's very, very easy to teach yourself bad habits. And it's kind of like the opposite of deliberate practice. And I think a lot of people think that to get good at a skill, it's a simple equation of time put in equals ability. And it's true that time put in is one of the variables in the equation, clearly. But if you are not practicing the right things or in the right way, or practicing what you actually want to get good at, if you're practicing something that's like a substitute for what you actually want to be good at, or like a corollary, I don't know if that's the right word. Like if you're just playing songs, right? Like, okay, I played for an hour today. I played. Why am I not 1 hour of time better than yesterday? It's like, okay, what did you actually do during that hour? Did you focus on one of your weaknesses? Did you try to understand a bit of a chart that you didn't understand before, or did you just like go play your favorite songs that you always play and kind of like play them and go, yeah, I did all right today, which is totally okay if you're having fun, rock on if that's your goal. But like, yeah, if you're doing that and not getting better, that could be why.
Yeah, totally. And that's the thing, right? Like I think this video is for people who like want to get better and are not seeing results and are like
Yep,
asking why. So
yep,
hopefully some of the things we're talking about can make your brain spin like, oh, maybe I need to adjust my behavior X way. Like,
sure,
so
sure.
yeah, but obviously we're both really reachable and you can follow up with us if there's anything specific. But I think there's also like so I think what you spend your time doing obviously is very important. I think that I've found, and Chris Chike, I am Chris for Life, and I have talked about this I think a couple times on Twitter, with like threads getting a lot of engagement, but basically this rule of like +2 or -2 in
Yep.
difficulty.
I
So I feel
remember
like
you
if
told me
you're,
that a while
did I
ago when
tell
I
you
was
that?
first starting. Yep,
Oh,
yep,
cool. Yeah, because I feel like you're you can also adjust that like maybe like +1 -1, but I feel like for me, um, once I could FA 13s, the thing that made me feel like I was absolutely unable to like play the game again was like Tech 15s and like
sure,
passing a Tech 15 when I could FA 13s was like felt like an insane achievement.
sure. What
And
was your first 15, by the way? Do you remember off the top of your head?
like
Might be
Tech
something I don't know.
15,
Yeah.
I don't remember for sure, but it was probably one of the prickly pear mixes
Oh,
because
okay.
I think that that was kind of my first foray into like 14 plus content
Sure,
because I
sure,
just didn't care about stamina. And so, like, I think those mixes were like, oh my God, stamina can actually be really, really fun.
sure.
So probably, yeah, probably like the Homarju one is my guess, but I can look. But I can tell you my first 15 quads or
Okay.
last year at ITL, which is really fun.
Yes.
Um, but what was I saying? Yeah, I think it's just like this idea that like also when I play 11s at that level of like being able to FA 13s, it feels really straightforward, thoughtless to like play an 11 and try to like play something like Energizer, that Bangers Only 3 Tony
Sure.
chart.
Hmm.
It's like 11. It even says in the description, I think, like 11.0, like Tony put 11.0 or something. Like that requires no effort, I think. So but what's great is I still have not quinted that. So I think that
Sure.
like at that level, -2 is like I haven't quinted that. +2
Yep.
is like if I clear it, it'd be incredible. So I
Sure.
think the bell curve of ITG Step Media players probably somewhere around 9. I would say like if you can FA a 7, you're
Hmm.
like competitive, great. If you are trying to clear an 11, like 11s are really hard. So that kind of feels like I don't know if that's a normal curve, but we could look at ITL data and kind of see. But
Sure.
yeah, I would love to hear how that's worked for you, not worked for you. But
Yeah.
for me, +2 -2 feels like the right kind of balance.
I think it's exactly right. Like, something that has helped me improve, maybe more than anything else, is consistently trying things that are outside my comfort zone. And probably that +2 is like exactly right. So it's like I really spent a lot of time and still do spend a lot of time continually trying to pass songs that are too hard for me. And I know they're too hard. And every once in a while, I get one, and it's really exciting. But the most important thing that this does, so if I try really, really hard and pass a new 14, I'm playing like dual breaker, whatever, right? 200 BPM streams, which I did pass. It was very exciting. And then now I go back to a song with like 150 BPM streams. Maybe it's an 11, so or a 10 even. So it's like my level is 12, so two down is a 10. And suddenly, like, okay, now tens, just like you were saying, feel really, really straightforward, easy, slow. There's almost like one of the things I noticed as I was getting better at tech and playing harder songs was that easier songs felt slower. And I'm not talking about foot speed or BPM. I'm talking about the amount of time that it takes your brain to comprehend what it needs to do next. Because so many of the things that you practiced in the +2 songs became internalized, and they became internalized at a more difficult level. So when you go back to these easier ones, your brain almost gets to like downshift and just be like, oh, okay, I don't need to think about this. I don't need to process it. The arrows are coming up, and your feet can just do what they're supposed to do. It's totally automatic. And I think if you don't push yourself on difficult content frequently, it can be really easy to be stuck saying, like, why are my scores on 11s not getting better? I'm playing 11s all the time. I should be getting better at 11s. Like,
Yep.
no, if you want to get better at 11s, go play 13s for a couple weeks, then go back to 11s, and suddenly your scores on 11s are going to skyrocket.
Yep.
And it's really hard to play difficult content. It doesn't feel good all the time because you're bad at it. And that doesn't feel good. It feels bad to fail. It feels bad to see scores, especially when you're looking around the community and you see these great players who put in a lot of time and work, and like they're getting extremely good scores on 14s, and you're just trying to hang on for dear life. But then you go back to the 11s and you start feeling like, okay, now I'm getting scores that people are jealous of on these, and it's
Yep.
because I
Exactly.
put in that really difficult, like, back-breaking work on those hard songs.
Yeah, I can't emphasize this point enough. I feel like it's the number one thing that has elevated my game for sure. Like I can't describe to you the feeling that I feel when like I'm doing a charity event with Chris, who I believe is like the 4-panel dance game goat, and like like me in 2005, I would literally fail Blood Rush, like literally
Sure.
fail, and I quad it playing Chris, like just randomly playing it for this event. Like it's like a really, really unreal feeling. And it's only possible with events like we've had, like ECFA, ITL, and like I don't want to play 14s ever. Like I don't enjoy
Yeah.
I will say to the camera, I don't want to play 14s.
Oh, yeah.
But the problem is the scene that I love and cherish and like, has given me like a lot of great memories and just vibes and everything. Like they want tournaments to have 15s. so like I just got to get good, and like
Yep.
that's, if I choose to be a competitive player, I don't have a choice as to what content I got to play.
Yep.
So I cannot stress enough this rule of like, if you're not challenging yourself, you're never going to be competitive ever.
Yep.
Like you're
Yep.
just never like, you're just never going to be competitive. Like you should feel like it's hard.
Yep. 100%.
Really, really hard.
And like on that note, it's also really good to. I've been saying this a lot, and I think it's true to watch other people who are really good, because it's so easy, especially for me when I was getting into it, to see people like Chris, or like once I found out about ITG, to see people like you or Kaya and see the scores, and you just like think like, oh my god, they're like these untouchable dance game gods. But then I watch Kaya's stream, or I watch you stream or whatever, and play a hard song, and afterward, panting, sweating, falling down. It's like, okay, we're all human. Like you said earlier, we all have human bodies. This shit is hard for everybody. It's gonna be hard for me too.
Yeah, like I slept poorly and it affects my performance because I can't hold the
Yeah.
bar as tight. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like this is the world we live in. Like I don't like nothing comes easy at all. But
Nope.
like when
Well,
you
we're DDR boomers, so
yeah, exactly.